Hello and welcome to Africa Beyond Borders. I'm your host, Saraya Mentor, and on this show, we get to chat to amazing Africans who've traveled beyond their home countries. It is all about celebrating culture and identity. Today's guest, where do I even start? We are talking with an award winning Afrocentric filmmaker who's traveled Africa, his home country, and beyond. He uses cinema to tell creative stories about identity, culture, and creating social change across Africa. Please welcome Williams Ameh.
Hello, Saraya.
How are
Good to be
you?
here. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good, thank you. I am so excited to be chatting with such an amazing filmmaker who's constantly creating change in Africa. But before we talk about the greatness that you've created around Africa and your craft, I would love to find out. Just take me through your home. Like, how did you grow up in Nigeria? And I want to understand your cultural childhood like in Nigeria.
Well, growing up in Nigeria, uh, it's fun. Admits so many hardships, but it's a lot of fun. Growing up as a child, I come from a family of seven. I'm the second child, and we had a lot of children around us. In our neighborhood where we run around with what we call gongoni. Gongoni means can. Along with can, those tin cans,
Mm-hmm.
we turn them into makeshift cars, and run around, play around. It was a very interesting time where we had little to worry about. We had community, we had friends, handful of friends. We fight, we play rough plays. I think I have a souvenir for one of those plays. You see my teeth? I think I broke my teeth at this time. it's it's a lot of fun. It's amazing growing up. And in those times we had our childhood ambitions, dreams. Unfortunately for me, I I come from a very religious home where if
Mm.
you are conversant with the things happening in Nigeria at the time, we do not get to watch films because of our religious, background in this at the time. It's like almost sinful to watch films, to sit in your house to watch television. So we rather than
Mm.
watching films, we go around and all of those things. But as children, as curious as we are, we would go and hide, by the windows of our neighbors with our television and just be sneaking, Sometimes they will chase us away, we run and come back, and it's like that for us, striving to become somebody in a very humble background. But we had a lot of fun growing up. We had family, we had friends. So this paints a picture of my the environment I lived. The kind of childhood, the kind of childhood experience that I had. It was actually fun. Children of nowadays don't have this kind of community. To be honest, we had. My father is a very amazing storyteller. In the
Mm.
nights, he sits us. So I brag with him because he is my father, the storyteller. So every other children in the compound will come and sit around my father. So it's like, if you don't keep it there, you're not going to come to the front of our house to hear story this evening and stuff. So my father would, interact, tell us stories of the moon, tortoise, farming on the skies, all of those things. So
Wow.
it was very lovely time, yeah.
Wow, so you could say that storytelling is in your family and you took it even further. That is
It's,
beautiful.
it is.
It really is beautiful. I just wanted to, I find it actually curious that you guys weren't allowed to watch as much TV because, for example, in Namibia, in the south where I grew up, we would sit together almost every day at 6 o'clock and watch every telenovela in Portuguese and Spanish and would sit together as a family and eat our food in front of the TV. So it's very interesting. I just want to take a breather before we continue. What's your native language? I'm so keen to learn.
All right, so before I tell you that, don't get it twisted. I didn't miss anything growing up because I disobeyed a lot. So we didn't miss anything.
Jumping through
So,
windows, yes.
yeah, so there is we didn't miss anything. Anyways, I am from Kogi State, Nigeria. So Kogi State is in the middle belt of Nigeria. just
Mm-hmm.
close to Abuja. They said the Federal Capital Territory, and my native language is Igala. Yeah, so I'm of the Igala descent.
That is so cool. You're actually the first Nigerian I'm chatting to, so it's super cool. I'm gonna be bragging about you a lot, just so you know.
Actually, you're the first Namibian I'm talking to. As a matter of
Yay!
fact, I've loved your country. I've seen your country. I've always wanted to come.
I
So I don't know a
saw.
lot of people.
I mean, you're so welcome to come. We'd be so happy to host you. I recently saw that you released a short documentary about your village titled The Village by Williams Ameh. And you captured what home means like to you. And I just want to hear more about that. What inspired you to create that piece and what does home mean to you?
Right? If you look at what is happening right now, the world is trying to go digital. I mean, more digital than we have it right now.
Yes.
Everything is becoming almost controlled. And for me, there's this blind chase of Eldorado, a city that does not exist,
Mm-hmm.
only a city that we only imagine in our head that if we go to the city, we would achieve everything we dream of. It's going to be heaven. But the
Yes.
truth is, where we are is heaven. The stillness, the quietness, the community, the
Mm.
friendship, the fellowship, the honesty you find in the village like that. You're not finding in the city that is full of hush, 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 all the traffic, the engine grinding, the car accident, armed robbery. It's different. The truth is there's what we call perception and perception of reality, right?
Yes.
And because our community have been sold to us in a way that we do not find appealing, right? We don't want to be in our village anymore. We want to go to those places that they have represented in a fashionable way that we now find
Mm.
appealing. Now, my
Mm.
idea is this: I want to go back to the village where you are running from and show you that this is home. This is this is beautiful. And everything that you define as archaic, as obsolete, as non, relevant, and all of those things are actually beauty, but we don't have the eyes to see them. So what I do is go back to those places that you
Mm.
normally want to ignore, that you normally want to run from, and show you the beauty that exists there. Because it is only when you are able to see the beauty of it, you now start appreciating it, and you'll be then confident and comfortable in staying in this environment. So our villages are beautiful. It's maintain
Yes.
the culture, the community, the communality, of who we are. Our identity is there. Everybody care about you. You go out,
Mm.
everybody greets you. Well, everybody greets, so you're not bored, you're not depressed.
Yes.
I know. But coming to the town, there's so much isolation. There's so much. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I just want us to do things for the right reason. If you are migrating, if you're relocating, if you're going to the town, you should for the right reason, not because this is not, this is less of an ideal place to live.
Mm.
And our home is what we make it to be at the end of the day. So that is what inspired me.
Our
That's
home is
true.
what we make it to be. That is beautifully said. And I'm going to keep that to heart what you said. Eldorado doesn't have to be out there, it is inside
Yeah,
your home. I absolutely
yeah,
love that. Actually, you brought
yes.
up a new question in my mind because I had a bunch of questions, but now I want to know what was your
Good.
best childhood memory that reminds you of this is who we are and this is where I come from? Do you have a favorite memory?
Well, I cannot particularly point to one as my favorite childhood memory. But the truth is, growing up as a child, I've always appreciated the beauty of friends, the beauty of community, the beauty of
Yes.
fellowship. Like I said earlier, where we sit, you know, um, with my father to hear stories. And you see, the truth is, those stories stay with me till this moment and forever. Because
Yes.
every time when I see, there's what we call cloud memory. I don't know if this is a coincidence or it can be scientifically proven, but the truth is, every time I sit outside alone and I get to see the moon, I remember my father. I remember the stories he told us growing up as children. Every of those stories. So it's like all those stories that he told us then when most times we sit down outside only when the moon is shining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, when it's too dark, nobody wants to stay outside. But when the moon is shining, everywhere is bright, people are outside having conversations and all of those things. So all the stories my father shared with me, with us, growing up, every time I might forget them, but every time I find myself sitting outside, and the moon is shining, I remember my father's face, I remember my father's voice, I remember those stories. So I think those that moment, and I really would want to share this kind of moment with my own child,
Yes.
eventually, because those moments stayed with me. It makes me appreciate my father even more. So yeah, I think for me this is one of the highlights of my childhood.
That was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I do know that you're a filmmaker who wants to perceive Africa as unity and you fight for that so beautifully. I want to know your first traveling experience when you left Nigeria. How did that impact the way you viewed yourself as a Nigerian and an African? What was that experience like for you?
Well, the first time I left Nigeria, it wasn't. I didn't go to a distant country. I went to Benin Republic. you
Mm-hmm.
know, I was so curious. I was so curious how it feels like leaving your own country to another man's country. Although Benin Republic is not so far, you know. And when I went, we had to stop at the border and have to walk through. My legs were really, literally heavy. Like, oh my goodness, I'm counting steps to leave Nigeria. I'm counting my steps. One, two, one, two, one, two. I'm finally out. you know, and getting to experience other people's culture other than the culture of Nigerians that I'm so used to was amazing. It further defines the fact that there are things that unite us than those things that divide us. Because in so many ways we are similar. We look alike. There's no distinction between who these people are and who we are. We find common food that we eat in Nigeria, common dances, and all of those things. But in a unique way, in a way that is unique to them, and there's greater appreciation for it. So my first experience living in Nigeria was actually amazing. I had good time in Benin Republic. I went to learn a lot about their culture in Vida,
Wow.
learn about the slave trade, follow the coast of Guinea, along the coast, studying, learning, as
Wow.
I move along. I got to a village where I think it's a village close to Buda.
Mm-hmm.
I've forgotten the name right now. Where it's a collection of different people from West Africa that those days where those slaves were taken from Nigeria, Togo, the Republic itself, another part of West Africa. They brought them
Yes.
there, keep them for a while before transporting them. So they were there. We are the last set of slaves. They were there when the announcement came that slave trade has been abolished. So those people now form a community because most of them cannot trace their way back home. So they form a
Yes.
community there, and they still exist and live in that community as one unit to this day. So there are
Wow.
people from different backgrounds existing together as one people in that village.
I love the way you said that you were able to see so many Northern African countries combining and staying together. Just before we continue,
Yeah.
we're going to go on a very quick break. We're going to be right back on Africa Beyond Borders. And welcome back to Africa Beyond Borders. You're still with me, Saraya Mentor, and we're speaking to Williams Ameh, who's an award-winning Afrocentric filmmaker who's here to share his experiences around Africa, sharing his story of unity, identity, celebrating culture, and creating social change. We were just getting into I don't know how many countries. It's a lot of countries from Cameroon to Ghana to Nigeria. I would love to know from all of these countries that you've traveled to and filmed in as a filmmaker, which country has left the deepest impression in you, and could you share your story of that?
I think the deepest impression that have stayed with me in my little travels
Oh.
is a place in Ghana called Lake Osuntre. It's the biggest natural lake. When I got there, I almost broke down and started crying. Reason being that it seemed like heaven on earth. The clouds are
Mm.
almost touching the water. It was beautiful, you know, seeing the sunrise, and the sunset. It's surrounded by mountains, and the lake was just there in its, exquisite beauty. And I was like, we have this amount of beauty here in Africa, and people are trying to run away. People are trying to what we call japa in Nigeria. Japa means
Mm-hmm.
relocate. This is
Japa.
too much. Really? Yeah, where did we get it from? How do we not learn to appreciate the beauty that lives, with us every day? That experience at that lake have stayed. In fact, every day if I go back to those moments, I spent 7 days there. I was filming it, I was appreciating every moment I spent there. It was one of the most beautiful. I've seen a lot of cultural people and places, but just being there in that lake was amazing. The people there, they reverence the lake, they treat the lake like a child. You know, it's one of the greatest impressions that I have from travel.
That is very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'd love to know, you made a documentary in 2024 about Africa's untold beauty. Can you please take us through the filming process of that, and how was that experience like for you?
Right. So you see, filming African untold beauty is like somebody asked me a question that uh, is it a question or oh, it was a compliment. I was going to film a festival, and so we linked up. That's the way we connected. So the person have been sending me a message online for a while. So we just got to link up that day and attend the festival together. And she was just complimenting my work, and we were like, I love the way you tell your stories. I love the way you use your lens to tell the story. I said that's because I clean my lens. It was a little bit sarcastic, but then in that very moment, my response made me ponder a little bit, and I said it is actually true that I clean my lens figuratively, because at the end of the day, if you have a dirty lens, then your image will be distorted. Now, so many people come to Africa, they film Africa, with a distorted lens. That is why you go, you see selective stories, you see narrative that are not representing the integrity, the strength, the beauty of Africa. And you keep wondering, why am I in this hellhole called Africa because of what you see about Africa, you know.
Wow.
But then, if it is, and so many times their lenses are stained with prejudice, with the need to film viral content, because if you want to film viral content, it must have a little bit of controversy. It must be to the extreme because negative stories goes viral easily. So if you want to favor algorithm, you select the kind of story you tell. So at the end of the day, algorithm train us to tell a particular kind of story that an audience who are addicted to the pain, who are addicted to the backwardness, the peril of Africa, the African sufferings, the African struggle. This global audience it is called trauma porn, who are addicted to this trauma porn Africa. They want to
Yes.
watch it, they want to consume it because it fits into a stereotypic narrative of Africa that they have. So the algorithm train content creators, train filmmakers to feed this audience. And guess what? Organizations take it a little step further by funding people to tell selected stories. Now, the
Yes.
kind of stories I want to tell are not, and what inspired that is the need to create an archive. Archive defies time. It's when algorithm is no longer here, when time is no longer here, when we are no longer here, archives remain. It speaks to the truth of a place. It speaks to the truth of a people. And then if you come to an environment, you can see the beauty and the negativity in that environment. Now, what you can film as, I can go to a place and like the village that I film, right? It's
Yes.
not like there's anything elegant in that village. There is nothing elegant, but there are certain things, those nuances that cannot be touched, that cannot be seen, but be felt is what I then, narrow my scope into. Filming those nuances that cannot be felt, that cannot be touched, but that cannot rather not be touched or seen, but be felt, through the way I tell those stories. So I'm trying to, how do I call it, open, beneath or scratch beneath the surface of what we can see, from the tangible to the intangible, of the community. So my idea of, telling this kind of story is the need for us to show beauty as we have seen it, so that we ourselves are able to
Mm.
appreciate the beauty that exists with us, the beauty that exists around us, to have confidence even in our skin as Africa. If you see most of my color grading, I tend to bring out the rich melanin skin,
Yes.
from every of my content that I film, so that you watch, you see yourself, you see how beautiful you can actually look in camera. I don't want to go and film children who are crying, who have kata in their nose, who are,
Yes.
it makes sense. Of course, we have this element in our community, but that do not define us. I don't want to tell a story that would be used to define a collection of people. I want to tell a story that if you define Africa by the kind of story I tell, I'm okay with it. I don't want to give more content to people who are already addicted to African films. The beauty, if we cannot see beauty, we will not appreciate it. So my idea is to open our eyes, to make us see beauty. I will end this question with this analogy.
Mm.
You can get married to a woman and you mistreat her because maybe you've been used to her, too familiar to her. And then maybe she ran away from your house and somebody else is marry her and start treating her well, like, oh my goodness, this is the woman that I, then
Mm.
you'll be like, oh, you now regret why you even chase her away. You want her back because somebody else is hate her, somebody sees what you did not see in her, and because the person have nurtured her, and she is glowing, you are now seeing those elements that were hidden. So my
Yes.
idea of filming the way I do is to bring out those hidden, features of Africa, that when we see, we are able to appreciate our environment ourselves even more.
I love the fact that you mentioned how you're cleaning your lens to show a side of Africa that is not portrayed as normal. I love the fact that you advocate for that as a filmmaker. You have released a feature film called Ekimifuna, and you collaborated with your South African friend Nomi, and it was about xenophobia, about the relationship between Nigeria and South Africa. Could you please take us through that
Yes.
collaboration process of between the two countries and the two cultures? How was that like?
Right. So just after the lockdown, it was one of the most, so that's devastating xenophobia attacks that happened in South Africa against Nigeria. And at the moment, just watching all of those xenophobic attacks, xenophobic statements, you know, I was particularly offended with South Africa. I was angry. It was not a nice place for me, seeing people burn, people jumping from story building, falling to their death, running around, being burnt alive. I was like, this is not Africa. This is not Africans. Why are we so bent on destroying ourselves? Why? My core is to see that Africa unite, right? And I'm
Yes.
seeing Africans killing themselves, doing all of these things that are not so nice, to themselves. It was devastating. And I told myself at that time, the hit of xenophobia, I said, there is nothing that is going to take me to South Africa. I hate South Africa. I don't ever want to go to South Africa. I don't want to have anything to do with South Africa. But then it occurred to me, this is not who I'm supposed to be, right? And because I'm able to make this statement because I was so angry, I was this angry because I love deeply, you know, and for this kind of thing to happen, it was heartbreaking for me and it was almost getting personal. I said, no, this is not going. I'm not going to allow hate stay and eat me up. I was going to address this issue and make a statement. I said, see, um, if we want to go eye for eye, our world will go blind. You see,
Yes.
and we Nigerians are one of the most traveled people, and South Africans don't travel to Nigeria as much as Nigerians travel to South Africa. So you don't define Nigerians by being in South Africa. Come to Nigeria to see Nigerians for who they are. Get to
Come
learn
see
about their
us.
culture. Yeah, interact with them because the more you travel, the more you meet people, know their story, you become empathetic towards those people. You know their pain, you know their struggle, so when they talk, you know where they are coming from. You see, so there is so much misinformation about Nigeria in South Africa that does not represent the truth about Nigeria. In fact, as a matter of fact, across the world, there's a negative narrative about Nigeria that is already popular. So it's difficult to rewrite the story of Nigeria, but again, little by little through documentary films, through having conversations like this, we're able to open, the eyes of people to see that these things do not really represent what Nigeria is or who Nigerians are as a matter of fact. So I had to reach out to a friend in South Africa to pull up and say, see, this issue of xenophobia, let's address it,
Yeah.
through storytelling, drive conversation around this topic. So we flew from South Africa to Nigeria. We did a screenplay together, and addressed the issue. The film was screened in South Africa, and it sparked a lot of dialogue. I don't know, but I don't know if we would want to give ourselves credit, but again, so many efforts have been taken over the years to address the issues. But after the release of that film, there is only rumor of xenophobia, but we've not had any major xenophobic attacks,
Yes.
on Nigeria or any nation, in South Africa up to this moment. So these are the kind of conversations we these are the kind of results we love to see, through the conversation we have storytelling, we have filmmaking. So that's what a filmmaking is all about.
Thank you for creating the films that you create, Williams. Thank you for sharing
Thank you.
awareness about Africa. Thank you for sharing the beauty of Africa. Filmmakers like you is what makes me proud to be African. Thank you for joining us here today on Africa Beyond Borders as well.
Thank you very much, Saraya, and thank you for creating this platform to protect African voices, and African stories. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to be here and having this very interesting conversation.
My heart, guys. Well, okay, to our viewers, I'm just overwhelmed, guys. But you guys can watch episodes and series like this every Monday here on DSTV, channel 285, GoTV, channel 25, and you can stream every episode on oneup2.com. From us, Africa Beyond Borders, it is good night.